So I've had so many people reaching out to me, family, friends, listeners, people from all over the world saying, Brando, where did we go wrong? How did we drop the ball on this one? And I think in the coming weeks, hell, in the coming years, as long as we have platforms, we're going to be talking about that and reflecting on that. And I think as we do, as we move forward reflecting on where things went wrong, I think it's very important that we stick together. I think it's very important that we don't get into these arguments and these pissing matches and blaming each other and pointing fingers. Because come January 20th, we're going to have a president that's not going to be fighting for us. We're going to have a president that is going to be, that does consider us the enemy from within. He's also not going to be fighting for his own supporters either, but they've not realized that, and that's not sunk in yet. So this video really isn't even directed at them. It's for us to reflect on things as we move forward. When I think about one of the biggest things that hurt our side of the aisle, I think of the mainstream media. Now, Donald Trump likes to prop the mainstream media up like they're his enemy and that he's working against them. And here I go with another one of my pro wrestling analogies. But back in the day, these wrestlers would create a feud on television and they would work their way all the way to a big main event at WrestleMania. Meanwhile, they were best friends behind the scenes. They rode in the same car a lot of times. They traveled together. They knew one another. And now they're older guys sitting around doing podcasts together and laughing about those memories. So Donald Trump goes out there and he refers to the mainstream media as the fake news media, and he makes them the enemy, and he gets the crowd to all boo whenever he says mainstream media, and the mainstream media becomes the Mr. McMahon to his Stone Cold. The mainstream media, for you older wrestling fans more my age, the mainstream media becomes the Ric Flair to his Dusty Rhodes. He can be the hero against the evil mainstream media, but really they're both the ones keeping each other going, because the mainstream media did not cover Donald Trump the way that people on our side of the aisle did. And Donald Trump just referred to them as the fake news, made them the enemy, and it looked as though he was fighting against something, but he really wasn't. One of the things the mainstream media did is they sit and they constantly talked about Joe Biden's age, Joe Biden's stutter. Anytime they could have a moment, if Joe Biden stuttered or stumbled going up a set of steps or whatever, it would become news for weeks on end. Meanwhile, the serious threats that Donald Trump was making would get glossed over. They would never, they may glance in on it just for a brief second and keep moving. But when Joe Biden had a bad debate performance, it ended up getting him out of the race because the mainstream media would not stop talking about it. Meanwhile, no matter how many receipts we brought here on channels like this and showed the dangerous things that Donald Trump was saying and doing, those things went unchecked by mainstream media. Now, I saw a comment on one of my videos right when the election results came in. Someone said, Brando, your biggest downfall was that you listened to the Midas Touch. And I saw that comment and I thought, I disagree with you there. I think the Democratic Party's biggest downfall, and a lot of America's biggest downfall, is that they didn't listen to channels like the Midas Touch. They didn't listen to the voices in the pro-democracy movement. Instead, they continue to turn on every day to the mainstream and take their word for everything that got said. And politicians out there would go out there, and not that there hasn't been politicians sitting on the Midas Touch network, there have, but these politicians will go out there and they will spend all their time on mainstream networks that did nothing but bash Joe Biden, that did nothing but talk about his stutter, that did nothing but talk about his age. Those are the people that they would take time out of their day to go sit and talk to. And then when they went and sat and talked to those people, what would they end up talking about? Joe Biden's stutter, or whatever other ridiculous thing that the mainstream media could think to talk to them about. It would turn into a pissing match that would make them look even more like the bad guy and make Trump look even more like the hero in the story. I really think that if our site had focused in on more channels in the pro-democracy movement, and I know you guys do, and I thank you for being here. Thank you so much for subscribing, and thank you for those that unsubscribed and came back. I truly appreciate that. But I think if they had paid more attention to what people like us was saying, because we were breaking it down. We were breaking down all the things that Donald Trump was saying and doing. Yeah, we was showing you the over-the-top ridiculous stuff, but we was also explaining Project 2025, which the mainstream media didn't talk about. We were also talking about, okay, For example, with women's rights, we was trying to explain this is bigger than just kicking it back to the states. This is bigger than just, your choice to have an abortion. This is bigger than that. This is women's health. There's a whole lot of things. We sat and brought story after story of people of women who lost their lives, of women like Amber Thurman, the 28-year-old mother in Georgia who lost her life, like Kate Cox, the mother that had to flee Texas to get help. We zeroed in on stories like that, and did you hear those stories in the mainstream media? Did the mainstream media sit and break it down and explain it to the people out there that was working every day? And yeah, they were working, they were struggling. The price of eggs was high, the grocery bill was high. That's what they were focused on. And there was probably a lot of women in this country that voted for Donald Trump because they said to themselves, well, hey, either A, I've already had my tubes tied, I don't plan on having any more children, or B, I would never have an abortion, so that's not going to affect me. And they didn't look at the bigger, broader picture that a lot of the pro-democracy channels was zeroed in on and focusing in on. The mainstream media, meanwhile, was just latching on to whatever cliche that they could get a hold of. And they were running with that. And that's what they do. And it ain't just the mainstream media. One thing that we hear people like Donald Trump say, and people in MAGA, the liberal media, they say it all the time, the liberal media. But the right wing has a much bigger media than we could ever have. And they portray us, again, they portray us as that enemy so that it looks like that they're fighting against something. But really, if you take all the podcasts into consideration, like Joe Rogan, you take all these platforms that they have, like Tucker Carlson, and then Elon Musk buys Twitter, turns it into a dumpster fire of misinformation, turns it into a dumpster fire of racism and misogyny and hatred. And that's where those people could go to not only, find headlines that fit their preconceived notions, but also to vent their hate and their frustration at the Democrats who were in charge. So I think Kamala Harris ran a damn good campaign. I don't think she's to blame. I've heard people say Biden should have dropped out sooner, gave her more time. I don't necessarily think that could have helped either. I don't blame Biden. I don't blame Kamala. I think that what happened is that a whole lot of people got it in their head that, hey, I'm struggling. And I think if they did stumble across videos of ours, they saw us showing clips of Trump trying to blow a microphone, and they said, well, you know what? I just struggle to pay my bills, so I don't really care if he did that. I just want my grocery bill to go back down. And they didn't stop and take the time. I really believe that the majority of my trolls that commented on my videos, I don't think they watched them all the way through. I think they saw the headline. I think they watched a couple of seconds of it. They realized I was about to bash their leader, and they said, I'm out, and then made some comment, started trolling with other people in the comment section. That's why for a while, folks, I would like to refrain here on the channel from rolling clips of Donald Trump. I know that you guys are tired of seeing him, and I'm to the point now where it's like I would rather sit here and reflect on what's going on. There will be moments that I roll certain clips that I want you guys to see, but I think as far as trying to show him for being a disgusting human being, that's never going to get anywhere with the trolls, because they didn't care about that, and they didn't take time enough to listen to us breaking down exactly how everything was going to play out. They do not realize just yet that they voted against their own interest. But they're going to be in the same boat with the rest of us sooner than they realize. And it's going to be too late. And then it's going to be a matter of like, what the hell did we do? And the only way that I see us ever getting out of this is when we can finally show and prove once and for all to the people that struggle and live paycheck to paycheck. Once we can prove, hey, this guy was your enemy all along, then we might start to make progress. But as long as the mainstream media is out there propping him up, and as long as they're ignoring channels on the pro-democracy movement, I will never listen to anyone who's going to say to me, and let me explain what I'm going to say. I'm not going to listen to people who's going to tell me my downfall was that you listen to the Midas Touch. I'm not going to do that, and I'll tell you why. Yes, I'm affiliated with the Midas Touch Network. Yes, we're partners. That's true. So there's some people who would say, well, you're just saying that because you work with them. No, the reason why I went to work with them is because they're fair, and because they speak the truth, and because when they get it wrong, they come out and admit it, and because when they have someone on that can explain to them where they got it wrong, they hear them out, they listen. They it's not about that. I don't consider them a Democratic channel. They don't consider themselves a Democratic channel. It's a pro-democracy channel. And I think that, if more people had listened to that type of information and heard the truth of what was going on, we'd be in a different boat today. And I think if more politicians, there has been some sit down on Midas, but I think if more had have sat down and talked to them and gave light to them and gave light to other channels in the pro-democracy movement. I heard Brian Tyler Cohen, shout out to him, he's one of my favorites. I heard him talk about this very thing, how that he would spend weeks upon weeks upon weeks trying to get people to sit down with him on his channel. He's one of the best channels out there, one of the best voices of reason we have, who brings the information and breaks it down in a way that everyone can understand. That's the kind of place that whoever comes out next as the Democratic frontrunner, that's the kind of place they need to go sit and talk to. That's the kind of place they need to engage with. And they need to shine a light on that, because the mainstream media has never done them any favors. The mainstream media is only going to get them on there and get them to talking about something stupid for a headline and for a clip that they can then play over and over. What the Democratic side needs to do is they need to start listening to their base. They need to start listening to the people who are propping them up. To everyone out there that says that Democrats suck at messaging, I will say this: those of us in the pro-democracy movement didn't. Did we always get it right? No. Did we make mistakes along the way? Yes, we absolutely did. I'll own it all day long. But we were doing our damnedest to bring the truth to people. And mainstream politicians preferred to prop up news organizations that made fun of them on a daily basis. So as we move forward, we'll be talking more about, where we went wrong, how we went wrong, and how we can fix it. And I appreciate everyone for reaching out. I appreciate everyone who is continuing to subscribe here and stay along for the ride. I understand if people needs to take a break from the politics. I totally get it. Take a break, put your phone down, walk away, hug your kids, walk your dog, do whatever you need to do. I completely understand. But to those out there who are suddenly saying, I don't ever want to talk politics again, I want to get away from it. If you leave the argument, this country's even more screwed than ever before. Right now, more than ever, we have to pay attention. Again, take your breaks, do what you got to do for your own mental health, and take care of yourself right now. But let's stay focused on the conversation, because the other side, MAGA, the Trump supporters, one day they're going to need us. They don't realize it now, but one day they're going to be sitting here beside of us, and that's going to be a sad day when it gets here.